convener of IIC College. I am happy to welcome all the IIC presidents, vice presidents, conveners, IIC faculty coordinators, students for the seminar on how to plan for startup and legal and ethical steps. This program is part of Mentor-Mentee program. We are happy to have our mentee institutions, BVVS, Akkamahadevi, Women's College, Bagalkot, Mount Carmel College, Bengaluru, Sheshadripuram Institute of Management Studies, Bengaluru, St. Paul College, Bengaluru, Vivekananda Institute of Technology, Bengaluru, along with our members from IIC Kristu College, outside Noida. I'm very happy to have all here. For this program, I welcome our chief guest and resource person, Mr. Manjunath M S, Assistant Professor of Law, Kristu College of Law. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
I will give a brief introduction, then I will hand over to the sir. Mr. Manjunath sir is having around 20 years of corporate experience in excellence as a trainer, 5 years in teaching. Sir did PhD in medical law, LLM in intellectual property technology law, LLB from University of Mysore, and also BCom from University of Mysore. Sir had published n number of articles in reputed journals. Sir presented his findings in national and international conferences. Sir, really, we are happy to have you, the right person, to have the session on how to plan for startup and legal and ethical steps. I welcome you, sir, and please take over the session.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, my dear colleagues from Kristu College Autonomous, students who have joined this particular program. So I'll be dealing with basically the legal and ethical aspects so relating to the startups. So first, let me share my slides. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir, we can see the slides, sir.
Yeah.
Slides also moving.
Yes, thank you. So recently, we are hearing about startups, and it is not only in India, across the world, and the governments across the world globally, they are giving priority to these startups. Why? Of course, the objective of the government is economic growth of that particular country, as well as to create employment. So what might be the reason for these startups to be increasing in such vast numbers across the globe? Might be so many reasons. There might be so many reasons. It might be because of technological advancement. It might be because of the availability of funding, etc. I would say the younger generation is more talented and they are more innovative. That way, to justify so whatever I said now, there is a recent report that is October 2023. So which actually says that India ranks third in the startups. India ranks third globally, over 1,12,718 startups which have been recognized by Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade across 763 districts of the country. So this is a significant achievement, I would say, with respect to startup. So before going ahead with respect to the legal framework and ethical considerations relating to startup, I would start with a brief definition as to what is startup. A startup typically refers to a newly established business. So it is a newly established business with an aim and objective to commercialize innovative products or services. And the next big question is how to set up a startup. So before moving ahead with regard to the legal provisions or the legal compliances, as young entrepreneurs that you are supposed to know. The first step that you must in fact look into or keep in mind is that you must choose a business structure or a business type. So why this is so important is because every business structure has certain advantages and limitations. Every business structure has a set of legal framework that you have to go through, the compliances that you have to go through. And it all depends on what kind of business that you are intending to start. So whether it is a product based or a service based on that, you have to actually select a proper business structure or a business type that it suits your requirement. So there are basically 4 business structures through which a startup can be registered. So which is that? Sole proprietorship, registered partnership firm, so limited liability partnership, and private limited company. So before going through the next process of registration and all the legal compliances, so what is really required for young entrepreneurs is that you must thoroughly understand each business structure, each business type, whether this suits your requirement or not. So let me just go through briefly as to what are the advantages and limitations of each business type so that it will be easier for you to decide whether it suits your requirement or not. Fine. So coming to the first business structure or business type, that is sole proprietorship. So if at all, if you decide to opt for or do a business by registering through sole proprietorship, being a sole owner, then there are certain advantages, there are certain limitations as well. So what are they? These are the things that you have to keep in mind, be thorough with, so that you can make a proper choice. What are the advantages? Advantages is less investment and less legal compliances. You need not have to go through so many legal compliances as you are supposed to when you are starting a private limited company. And the control of the business, since you are the sole owner of this sole proprietorship, you have a great control over the business and you are the decision maker, you are the sole decision maker, and you can take this decision quickly as well. So these are some of the advantages of sole proprietorship. And looking at the limitations, it is unlimited liability. What does it mean? Unlimited liability means if something goes wrong, if you incur loss, even to the extent, or you have to make good the loss by or through your private property as well. So you cannot just pass on that liability to the company because that is not a legal entity. You are responsible for the profits as well as the losses. So it is unlimited liability that you have if you are going for a sole proprietorship. The next limitation is no perpetual succession. So I think most of you are commerce students. You might have heard about this phrase. Sorry, members may come and members may go, but the company will go on forever, isn't it? But it is not so in case of sole proprietorship. There is no perpetual succession. It means that if something goes wrong, say for example, if the sole owner becomes insolvent, if the sole owner dies, then the company or the sole proprietorship also come to an end. So there is no perpetual succession. That is one of the limitations of sole proprietorship. Difficult to raise funds. It is obvious, isn't it? You are the sole owner. Who will come to invest? You are the one who has to mobilize the funds. So this is the greatest limitation in case of sole proprietorship. If you want to start up or register a particular business type or choose a business structure that is sole proprietorship, these are some of the limitations. Coming to the registration process, if you choose sole proprietorship as your business entity, then you need to get registration, but there are no big formalities that are involved. Couple of basic registrations that you have to go through. Other than applying for the PAN card and the bank account for the company, for the sole proprietorship, other than that, there are 2 registrations. One is registration certificate that you require under Shops and Establishments Act. So when at the place where you are going to set up the business, from that particular place, from that particular location, you have to obtain a certification from the local municipality, that is under the Shops and Establishment Act. And the second requirement is that you can register. This is not mandatory. The second registration that I'm talking about is not mandatory. That is under Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Act. There are advantages. If at all, I would suggest that you go for it, because there are a lot of advantages if you, in fact, register under Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, because government give lot of priority to small and medium enterprises. They provide funds. They actually provide tax benefits as well, tax rebates. So there are certain advantages if you go for this second registration. So the first business structure that we are discussing now is sole proprietorship. If you really want to choose this as your business entity, then the procedures are very simple, that you can register very quickly, and the amount that is involved is also very less, and less compliances as well. This is number one. The second business structure is partnership firm. See, when we talk about partnership firm, if you want to start up, if you want to set up a startup, so that is the business structure that you want to choose, a partnership firm. You can in fact go for either a registered partnership firm or an unregistered as well. See, unregistered has several disadvantages. In fact, the Startup India initiative does not encourage you to actually go for this unregistered partnership firm. So I would suggest that you go for the registration of this partnership firm, if at all, if you choose this business structure. Fine. So this partnership firm is governed and regulated by Indian Partnership Act of 1932. So right from the incorporation to winding up, all the procedures that is involved will be regulated by this enactment, this law, that is Indian Partnership Act of 1932. Now let us quickly understand what are the advantages of this partnership firm, what are the limitations of this partnership firm. First, easy to incorporate. What is really required if you want to register a partnership firm under Indian Partnership Act of 1932 is the most important document, that is partnership deed. So partnership deed contains everything, the nature of business, the partners, the kind of profit sharing that they do, share, and if there is any dispute between the partners, how they are going to resolve the dispute, and how the winding up process, admission of the new partners and retirement of the partners, every detail regarding to the partnership firm will be mentioned in this single document, that is partnership deed. So it is very easy to incorporate a particular partnership firm that is registered. So the advantage is you require only this partnership deed. There is less compliances, less legal compliances compared to LLP or compared to the private limited company. And the decision that can be taken is quicker, as there will be very limited number of partners in a partnership firm. And sharing of profit and loss also will be easier, because it will be usually based on the number of the capital investment that is made by each partner, isn't it? Now coming to certain limitations of this partnership firm. Unlimited liability. Again, as we discussed in the previous business type, the liability of the partner, each partner, is unlimited. In the sense, if something goes wrong, if the partnership firm incurs loss, that loss each partner has to bear from their private estate. So that is the biggest limitation when it comes to partnership firm. Second, no perpetual succession. It means that the firm can come to an end if something goes wrong to an individual partner. But again, it all depends on how they have drafted this partnership deed. If the partnership deed specifically contains the retirement of the partners, how new partners can be added in case of such loss, or in case of any kind of unforeseen circumstances, how to continue this partnership firm. If it is clear in the partnership deed, so then obviously the partnership will go on. Otherwise, so generally, if you just take the structure of the partnership firm, no perpetual succession. If something goes wrong, either the partners become insolvent or the death of the partner, the partnership firm might come to an end. Limited resources, again, the limited resources in the sense there will be limited partners. When there are limited number of people, obviously the resources also will be limited, isn't it? And difficulty to raise funds, again, they cannot issue any shares, they cannot issue any debentures like how it is done in a private company. So as a result, there is difficulty in raising funds as well. Coming to the procedure of registration. So how to register a partnership firm? An application, a form 1 has to be filed with the registrar of firms of any particular state with obviously a prescribed fee, and this must contain every detail. This form contains every details of each partner, the names and addresses of this partner, etc. So with this form 1, partnership deed also has to be an important document that need to be furnished or that need to be filed with the registrar of firms as well. So as we have already discussed, what is partnership deed? It contains every details relating to the partnership firm, whether it is the number of partners, the profit sharing, and the partners joining and the partners retiring, etc. And most important aspect here is selection of a name of the partnership firm. So the name has to be selected by the partners, and what need to be kept in mind by the partners is that the name that they select must not be too similar or identical. So that is what they must keep in mind before actually selecting a name for the partnership firm. If the registrar of firms are satisfied with all the compliances that are really required under Partnership Act, that is Form 1 and the partnership deed, every legal compliance has been met with, then they will issue a certificate of registration so that you can start off with your partnership firm, you can start off the business. That is the end of the registration process. So this is the second business structure that you can think of if you are planning to set up a startup. The third business structure or the third business type is limited liability partnership. The limited liability partnership is now preferred. Nowadays, it is a preferred type of organization. Like entrepreneurs are going for limited liability partnership because limited liability partnership has features of both partnership firm as well as private limited company. So hence, this is most preferred. So, the essential requirement or the essential aspects of limited liability partnership is that minimum of 2 partners are required and there is no upper limit. There is no maximum number of partners. They can have n number of partners in the partnership, in the limited liability partnership. Whereas in case of partnership firm, there is a limitation according to Companies Act of 2013. There can be a maximum of 50 partners that can be included in a partnership firm. Whereas in case of limited partnership, limited liability partnership, there can be any number of partners. And let us go through. And most important, again, that you have to make a note of is that the regulatory body relating to limited liability partnership is Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008. The regulatory body in case of a partnership firm is the Indian Partnership Act of 1932. So this enactment, which was passed in the year 2008, that is Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008, which regulates LLPs in India. What are the advantages? So what advantages of going for or you deciding on a particular startup as a business entity, that is limited liability partnership? So limited liability partnership, liability of the partners. So first of all, what is limited liability of the partner? In the sense, whatever amount, whatever capital that has been invested by each partner, only to that extent their liability lies. There cannot be anything beyond. So I think you will remember when we were discussing sole proprietorship and also when we were discussing partnership firm, the liability is not limited, it is unlimited, isn't it? In the sense, whatever loss that they incur, that has to be made good with the personal assets of that company, sorry, of that individual partner. It is not so in case of limited liability partners. So since it is a legal entity, in fact, their responsibility or their liability is only limited to the extent of capital that they have invested. That is number one. Second, low cost. You can set up a limited liability partnership with low cost and less compliances compared to how you start the compliances that is required to start a private limited company, and limitations, penalty on non-compliance. So whatever required, whatever the legal compliances that are required to be complied with, that has to be complied with properly. Otherwise, there will be penalty that will be imposed on such limited liability partnership. If I said the minimum requirement of the partners in case of limited liability partnership is 2. If the partners fall short of 2, then there can be wind up procedure that can be initiated as a result of non-compliance regarding to the minimum requirement of partners. So difficulty in raising capital, since the number of partners associated with this limited number of partnership, limited liability partnership might be relatively smaller compared to the private limited company. There is difficulty in raising capital as well, as even in limited liability partnership, there is no concept of equity or no concept of shareholders. So these are some of the advantages and limitations when it comes to limited liability partnership. If you want to start up a business entity with limited liability partnership, you have to look into these kind of these advantages and limitations. And what is the procedure? What is the procedure to set up a limited liability partnership? Step 1, you have to obtain digital signature certificate. See, now everything is online. Whatever you do, whether you're applying for a digital certificate or whether you want a registration, since it is online, this digital signature certificate is very important and mandatory. And how you are going to obtain this digital signature certificate? It is through the Ministry of Home Affairs. So you have to go to the website of Ministry of Home Affairs. There, sorry, Corporate Affairs. There you have to apply for digital signature certificate prior to going for incorporation of limited liability partnership. The second requirement with regard to limited liability partnership is that the designated partner, who is the designated partner, it might be designated partner or designated partners. So they are the managing partners. Here, the second requirement is that the designated partner identification number is required, and you have to apply for this designated partner identification number. Again, you have to apply this to through the website, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and where you can, of course, see, these are very simple procedures, simple details that will be that will be required to be furnished through this website, and it is very easy to obtain this digital signature certificate as well as a designated partner identification number as well. The third requirement in case of registration or if you want to move ahead with this limited liability partnership is name approval. You have to reserve the unique name. So if you have thought of the particular name for your limited liability partnership, then you have to preserve, you have to reserve that particular name. And what you have to keep in mind is that whatever name that you have chosen is not similar, is not identical to any existing partnership or any existing name. So this is very important that you have to reserve this unique name. So that will help you. In fact, no other individual can violate or infringe by copying your name. So hence it is important that you must get a name approval. You have to preserve your name. You have to choose a particular name which is new. The fourth step with regard to incorporation of limited liability partnership is that you have to fill a form, that is fill IP, the form of incorporation of limited liability partnership, and this form has to be filed with Registrar of Companies. So it is as per the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008. And this form contains every detail, nature of your business, the registered office where it is located, the partners detail, the contribution of each individual partners, etc. So all relevant information relating to the limited liability partnership that you are intending to start or incorporate, every detail contains in this particular form. And like we discussed in the previous business structure, that is the partnership deed, we have a similar deed even in limited liability partnership, that is limited liability partnership agreement. So this is again in lines with the same partnership deed. It is also a legal document which is mandatory to be furnished to the registrar of companies along with the fill IP form as well. So this agreement, this legal agreement contains this more or less the same details as it is mentioned as we discussed rather in the partnership deed. Okay. So how to, in fact, the fourth business structure or the fourth business type is the private limited company. So as a budding entrepreneur, that you can keep this in mind. If you really want to go for a public limited company, so usually the public limited companies are incorporated under Companies Act of 2013. And if you want to start a business entity or have a startup through this particular business entity, you need to understand the legal compliances with regard to private limited companies. So what is the maximum number of shareholders that is really required to start a private limited company as per Companies Act of 2013? The minimum is 2 and the maximum is 200 shareholders. Then the steps for registration with regard to the companies, the registration process is as under. As we discussed in limited liability partnership, there is also a requirement of director identification number. So as we discussed in the previous, the managing partner or the designated partner who will be running the show, obviously they must have that unique identification number as well as the digital signature certificate also that need to be obtained in the same lines. The first step, if you want to incorporate the company, your business entity as a private limited company, you have to have a director identification number. Of course, you are going to get this number through Ministry of Corporate Affairs as well from their website, and you also must get the digital signature certificate as well from Ministry of Corporate Affairs. The second step is you have to select and reserve the company name. And please note, the company name that you select should not be random, and this particular name should represent the brand and the business activity that you are involved with, where the customers must recognize this particular business activity with the name that you actually choose. So if you have a particular name in mind, so you can select and reserve that particular name. And what again need to be kept in mind is that you should not, the name that you select should not be similar or identical with any existing company, any existing name of any LLP or any registered trademark as well. The third step, in order to incorporate the startup that you are intending to, is that draft memorandum of association and articles of association. See, these two documents are very essential. So I don't know which year that you students are in. I think you might be aware of this. The memorandum of association talks about the external boundaries and the objectives of the company, whereas article of association talks about the internal rules and regulations. These two documents are very essential, legal documents that need to be furnished or submitted to the registrar of companies in order for incorporation of a private partnership firm. The fourth step is to file SPICE, that is Spice Plus application, or INC 32. So this is a web-based application that need to be submitted for the registration of the company. So this application comes in two parts. Part A is for approval of the name, and part B for the incorporation of the company. So all the necessary details need to be furnished. As you know, the nature of the company, the number of shareholders, and all the necessary details that is required. And I want to repeat again, these are all simple procedures, not too complicated procedures. And step five, to get a company registration certificate. After complying with all the necessary steps that we discussed just now, if the registrar of companies, if they are satisfied that all the legal compliances have been met with by you as an young entrepreneur, so then they will go ahead and issue a certificate to start the business. So these are the 4 business structures, which is very important as a budding entrepreneur, that you must know the advantages as well as limitations of each business structure or business type that you want to select. And only after incorporation or meeting all the necessary legal compliances, you can go towards this second step. What is this second step? The second step is Startup India Initiative. So Startup India Initiative is a Government of India initiative. So this was started in the year 2016 with the intention of nurturing innovation and then encouraging startups. See, as I said initially, the intention of the government or any governments across the world is that for economic growth of the country as well as to generate employment opportunities. So with these 2 objectives in mind, the government of India has initiated Startup India Initiative in the year 2016. So uh, I want to repeat this aspect again. Say, for example, if you are intending to start a business, start a startup, the first step that you are supposed to do legally is that you have to select a proper business entity or business type that suits your either the product that you are manufacturing or the service that you are rendering. Irrespective of that, it must suit your requirement. As per your requirement, you go for incorporation, whether it is sole proprietorship or partnership form or LLP or private limited company. So after incorporating your business entity, the next step is you can register yourself in the Startup India Initiative. If you ask me a question as to why this is really required, is it really required? Is it really mandatory? No, it is definitely not mandatory for you to, in fact, take a registration under Startup India Initiative. It is really helpful if at all if you do that, because government is encouraging these startups and government is providing so many facilities, whether it is tax rebate or provide fundings or provide technological know-how, collaboration, export. There are immense opportunities or the facilities that are provided by the government for such startups. So I would suggest that you go for the registration of startup under Startup India Initiative. Now, first of all, there are certain conditions that need to be fulfilled. If at all, if you are intending, so the first step is you must have incorporated yourself in either of the 4 legal business structure or business type that we discussed. That is what we are discussing now. There are certain conditions that need to be fulfilled if you really want a registration under Startup India Initiative. What is that? Startup India Initiative does not recognize sole proprietorship. Please note. No doubt you can start a startup, set up a startup as a sole proprietorship, but you will not get a registration under Startup Initiative. If you really want to register under Startup India Initiative, you cannot, in fact, select this business type. Is it clear? So let me start with the conditions that is required to be fulfilled in order to register yourself in that Startup India Initiative. What is that? You must be registered or incorporated as a private limited company under Companies Act of 2013. If you want a registration under Startup India, you must be a private limited company under Companies Act, number 1, or you might be registered as a partnership firm under Partnership Act of 1932, or you might have registered under Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008 as Limited Liability Partnership, or there is one more option as an alternative to sole proprietorship, that is one person company. See, this one person company, as the name itself suggests, that the owner is one individual, but there is one particular clause that they have to nominate a particular director as a person who will be a director if at all something goes wrong to that single owner. So there are certain advantages to that particular business structure. So this one person company is as it is defined under Companies Act of 2013. If you fulfill these four conditions, or if you have a business entity who have been registered as a private limited company or a partnership firm or an LLP or even a one person company, you can seek registration through this Startup India initiative. And the second condition that you have to fulfill is that the company that you have incorporated should not have exceeded 10 years in operation. It means to say that from the date of incorporation, where you are seeking the registration under Startup India initiative, you should not have completed 10 years of your functioning. So this is very important. If your company is less than 10 year old, then you can go for this registration. The next condition is the turnover. The turnover, say for example, if your company is 5 year old, you are in operation, you are in business since past 5 years, and you want to register yourself under this Startup India initiative. If your turnover is more than 100 crores, you will not be eligible. If your turnover is less than 100 crores, you will be eligible, because it's obvious that you don't require any kind of assistance from the government where your turnover is more than 100 crores. The next condition is that the business entity that you are running, it must be working towards innovation of new products or processes or services, development or towards the development of new products, processes or services, improvement of existing products, processes or services. See, this condition is very clear that the government wants to encourage innovative ideas, isn't it? So this is the condition that need to be fulfilled in order to be registered under Startup Initiative, is that the company that you have registered should be innovative, should go for new products or processes, or you are developing a new product or even processes or services, or you are improving the existing product, process or services. So there lies the condition which is focused on innovation. And the second subcondition under D is that it is scalable. That is, this particular business model should have high potential of employment generation and wealth creation. See, again, I stressed upon this point. Across the world, all the governments, their very motto of encouraging these startups is because they want an economic growth of the respective country as well as to generate employment. So these two are the objectives behind encouraging these startups, isn't it? The second condition under D is that it must be a scalable a company or a business model, that a business entity that you are running, it must have a high potential of creating employment and wealth generation. Only then you will qualify to actually register under Startup India initiative. Now, what is the registration process? So there are certain conditions. It is online. So that is startupindia.gov.in. So where you can log in, and what are the requirements or the documents that you need to furnish through this online mode is that the certificate of incorporation, say for example, the partnership firm or the LLP or even the private limited company, the certificate of incorporation or registration that you have to furnish, the total number of directors or partners, every detail, as you know, entity relating to the industry, which is the sector that you are dealing with, what is the category, what is the nature of business, and details of the authorized representatives, number of employees if you have employed, and what is the problem that the startup is solving, and how does this startup proposed to solve the above mentioned problem? What is the uniqueness of your problem? So how you are planning to generate the revenue? So there are certain essential requirements that you need to furnish in order to seek the registration under Startup India initiative. So again, it is definitely not so complicated when you have already incorporated your company either in the form of LLP or private limited company or any partnership firm. So it is very easy for you to provide such information. And what is the benefit? See, this is something which is very important for you to note as an young budding entrepreneur, that what is the benefit that you go for a registration of such Startup India initiative. The benefits are many. Let me just give you some detailed idea. Intellectual property rights. See, it is very clear from the startup initiative that more emphasis is given by the government on innovation, isn't it? Obviously, when you're going for something, a new product or new services or new processes, you need to, in fact, register or go for registration under intellectual property rights when when you're filing for either patent, copyright, or trademark or design. There will be rebate that will be available while you're filing the application. So with the application, you have to pay certain application fee, isn't it? While you're applying for the patent or any intellectual property for that matter. Rebate will be available while you are applying for intellectual property rights. And second important is intellectual property rights when you apply for whatever it might be, whether it is patent, trademark, or design, etc. If you actually enroll yourself or register yourself under Startup India initiative, the Startup India initiative will actually speed up the process. Did you understand? See, if you have registered through the Startup India initiative, and if you want to apply for a patent, with that application where you are supposed to pay the fee, there will be a rebate that you're going to get on the fee that you're going to pay. And also, it will be disposed of in a speedy manner, unlike the normal time that takes for a patent to be approved. It will be lesser than that. See, we cannot exactly say how many months or how many years it might take, but it will be relatively speedier, speedy compared to the normal or if you go without the registration in Startup India. And there are panel of facilitators. See, these facilitators are engaged by the government. The fee that is paid to the facilitators will be by the government, and these facilitators will help the startups. They will assist in filing the applications as well. Okay, so these are very important benefits if you actually enroll yourself or register yourself in the Startup India initiative. And relaxation with so many initiatives of the government. Say, for example, if the government is calling for a tender, and the general condition that is really required to be complied with is that there must be prior experience, and there will be a clause regarding turnover as well, which obviously the new startup might not actually comply with. In such circumstances, relaxation is provided by the government. So relating to the prior experience and turnover. And please note, just because there is relaxation with regard to the prior experience and turnover, it does not mean that there will be compromise on the quality standards or the technical requirements. All the quality standards and technical requirements remain the same. Fine. And one of the benefits, another important benefit of you registering under Startup India initiative is that there are 6 labor laws and 3 environmental laws, so which are very essential. That compliance with regard to these laws are very essential while you actually start a particular business entity. Now, when you register through this Startup India, you can in fact self-certify compliances. You need not have to approach any governmental agency to fulfill these 6 labor laws and these three environmental laws. See, just because if we say self-certify, it doesn't mean that you can do anything and everything. The basic principles that you have to adhere to. Is it clear? So please note, self-certification does not mean that you can infringe all the laws, or you can do away with all the labor laws or environmental laws. The basic principles of these labor laws and environmental laws have to be met with. This relaxation will be for a period of 3 years. What did you understand? Self-certification. Self-certification, you can actually self-certify yourself saying that you are complied with all the 6 labor laws and 3 environmental laws. And which are they? These 3 environmental laws are Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Cess Amendment Act, and Air Prevention and Control Act. And then when it comes to labor laws, the building and other construction workers, regulation of employment, conditions of service, interstate migrant workmen, regulation of employment and conditions and service act, payment of gratuity, and then the contract labor, payment of employees provident funds and miscellaneous provisions act, employees state insurance act. There will be certain minor relaxation that will be allowed. So please note, it doesn't mean that you need not have to comply with all the 6 labor laws, which is very important, laws. Certain minor changes or minor non-compliance, if I could say so, can be considered. Okay. When you actually register through this Startup India initiative, the winding up procedure is much simpler. I think you will be knowing, if you have studied Companies Act of 2013, the procedure for winding up of a company is really a very, very big process. But this process has been done with. Why? This startup initiative is obviously innovative in nature, and it is very important that the funds has to be channelized. If something happens or if the startup does not work, it is very important that those resources and capital has to be channelized into any other productive options, as a result of which it is very important that such entity or such business entity has to be closed or wind up quickly. So there has to be fast track exit policy, and the government if you enroll or if you register under Startup India initiative, the winding procedure is pretty fast. If you again register under Startup India initiative, there are tax benefits, tax exemptions that are available as well. So for 3 years, you're not supposed to pay any tax. So tax exemption for any recognized startup is of course, it is prior to the approval of the concerned authority. The startup which has been incorporated, so that is after 1st April 2016, can apply for this tax exemption. So the tax exemption will be available for 3 years. And the government will also help in case of any requirement of funds. So if the government feels that a particular startup has to be funded without any collaterals. What is collateral? You need not have to mortgage or keep any immovable property as a security in order to obtain any loan. No collaterals are required. You can get a loan from or funds from the government, and the government has designated 10,000 crores. So that is managed by Small Industries Development Bank of India. The government has set aside 10,000 crores to encourage or to fund the startups. And then credit guarantee. So in fact, when I was discussing the different business structures, I said it is important for you to actually take a registration under micro and small enterprises. There is credit guarantee schemes. So in fact, I touched upon this particular point that the government is helping the small and micro enterprises with regard to funds as well. So here, collateral free credit will be provided to small, micro and small enterprises as well. So that is again an advantage if you go for a registration under Startup India initiative. The tax exemptions on capital gains. So what is capital gain? If you are selling a capital asset, say for example, you have sold an immovable property. When you have sold an immovable property, say for example, you have bought that immovable property, say for example, a piece of land for 50 lakhs, and you're selling it for 1 crore. Here the gain is 50 lakhs, isn't it? That for 50 lakh in the normal scenario, you're supposed to pay capital gains. Whereas in case of any business entity who has registered under Startup India initiative, there is no capital gains that is applicable. So tax exemption with regard to capital gains. So the legal framework that we are discussing now, we have dealt with two. One is the business structure, and second is the Startup India initiative, the registration under Startup India initiative. And the third important legal provision that as an entrepreneur, as a budding entrepreneur, that you must be aware of is the founders agreement. So what is this founders agreement? So founders are the ones who are actually starting this business, isn't it? Founders are the one who are initiating this startup. So their agreement is very important because that forms the foundation of this startup. Hence, it is really advisable that founders agreement must be executed. So this founders agreement, what does founders agreement contains? It talks about the relationship between the founders. It talks about the rights and liabilities, roles and responsibilities, and obligations of the founders, the very objective of setting up this startup, etc. This is a legal document. It is very important that as an entrepreneur, you must keep this in mind that whenever you are intending to start a startup, you must have a founders agreement as well. Fine. So what are the essential components when it comes to founders agreement is what we are going to look into. So first of all, identification of founders. Who are these founders? Ownership structure, like what are the allocation of shares? How are each owner, sorry, each founder, what is the ownership or what is the number of shares that he holds in that particular startup, and the roles and responsibility. Each founder, what is the roles, responsibility, and the obligation towards the startup, decision making, and what is the decision making process that particular startup involves in, whether it is the operational requirement, whether it is the financial matter of that particular startup, whatever it might be. The confidentiality and non-disclosure, the founders agreement also will contain confidentiality, the matters relating to confidentiality, say for example, trade secret or intellectual property rights, proprietary information, everything is contained in this founders agreement. Dispute resolution, say I'm talking about some of the essential contents which you will find in this founders agreement. And dispute resolution, if there is any dispute, then how the dispute has to be resolved. Termination and exit, if at all, if at any point of time this startup need to be terminated, or what is the exit policy in that regard. So these are some of the essential components, so that you will find in, or that you have to keep in mind, that you have to include in this founders agreement. So which is a legal document. It will be executed by the founders, between the founders, and it talks about so many aspects that we discussed now. The next legal requirement that you must keep in mind is that it is not sufficient that if you choose a business entity and if you go for incorporation of that business entity, actually go for other business licenses as well. Say for example, what are they? If your company, if your business entity, whatever it might be, if the turnover is more than 40 lakhs, you must go for GST registration. So if turnover exceeds the turnover above the specific threshold, then whether it is product or services, you have to go for GST registration. Fine. Number one. And license under Shops and Establishment Act. What is this? If you have a retail outlet, if you are running an office, an establishment in India, in that particular place, in that particular state, the local municipal authority, you must get a license under Shops and Establishment Act. Professional tax registration. So if you have hired certain professionals, you have to register and, for the professional tax under the respective state government. If the industry that you are working in is relating to food, sorry, food processing, food manufacturing, catering, then you need to have food license, FSSAI registration, Food Safety and Standard Authority of India. So this business license also you must obtain. Drug license, if you are into a pharmaceutical healthcare industry, then obviously you have to apply for a license under Central Drugs Standard Control Organization when it comes to center as well as state as well. Import and export code, you need to obtain a license again if you are intending to import as well as export. So these are the legal aspects that you have to look into while you are intending to start a startup. So these are very essential that you have to go through all the processes that we discussed for a smooth running of your startup. Fine. The second aspect, quickly I will run through if I can get 10 minutes more. The ethical aspects of the startup. See, every time we relate to the ethical aspects or ethical principles to some of the professions, say for example, medical profession, we always want the doctors to be ethical. So why not in the startup? Why not an entrepreneur like you? In fact, ethics play an important role in startups as well. So what is that? What are the ethical considerations? What are the ethical steps that you as a budding entrepreneur must keep in mind while you go for a startup, while you start a business entity? Number one, compliance with laws and regulations. See, as I said, there are so many labor laws that you'll be dealing with. And compliance with such laws and regulations is very essential for a startup. And whether it is licenses and permits, environmental clearance, etc., you have to comply with all the laws and regulations is one of the ethical considerations that you have to keep in mind. So fair employment practices, that is, you have to provide a safe working environment for the employers, and you have to create a culture that is fostering a culture of diversity, which is very essential nowadays. Equal opportunities should be provided to all the employees, and you have a duty towards the customers as well. You have to be honest, you have to be fair. You have duty towards employees. As I said, you have to treat them with dignity, respect, and fairness. And when you are marketing your products or services, you should not mislead. Ethical consideration with regard to marketing and advertising is something you have to keep in mind. Social responsibility, you have to give back something to the society as well where you're operating, isn't it? So certain charitable causes has to be looked into. Duties towards environment, so that's a big thing. So promoting sustainable and environmental conservation, and ethical leadership and governance. So this is again very important. So that is towards fostering trust, honesty, and accountability. This culture of ethical leadership and governance holds a key when it comes to startup. So this ethical leadership that one must possess as an entrepreneur, that you must keep in mind. So while you are involved in any kind of business entity. The last point, just 2 minutes I will take to complete, is registration of intellectual property rights. So first of all, what is intellectual property rights? Any creation that is in your mind is intellectual property, isn't it? So protection of this intellectual property is very important, as the whole concept of startup revolves around innovation, isn't it? Whether it is patent, trademarks, copyright, design, trade secrets. So you have to protect, the startup specifically has to protect their invention so that nobody should infringe so your intellectual property or gain out of it. Fine. So these are the legal and ethical considerations that you have to keep in mind. And if you have any doubt, so I can take up. I'm not able to hear. Sir?
Thank you, Manjunath sir.
Thank you.
Detailed explanation for that answer. So I think any question is there means we can discuss. Maria Santana, raise the hand. You want to speak? You can speak. Maria Santana. So dear participants, if everybody having a doubt of clarification on this concept, feel free to ask the expert. If any doubt, you can text in the chat also, and we can inform the respective faculty members also, so they can communicate to us if any student or a faculty member have a doubt in terms of IPR, legal and ethical steps to be followed. Oh, fine. So I request all possible participants and faculty members to switch on the video so that we can take a screenshot for our documentation. I request all the IIC faculty members, professors, and students from the 5 different mental institutions to switch on the video. Dear professors, students, so please switch on the video for a few seconds so that we can take a photo. Babu sir, Devani sir, what is students, quickly switch on the video. We take the photo. Little fast, little. Okay. Okay, thank you. Dear professor, I can see some of the questions in the chat. Can you please address it? One of the questions from Seema, kindly suggest about what kind of startup is available for non-technical colleges. Is there any training program for non-technical college students? Seema ma'am, we the Christianity College is also a non-technical, it's a non-technical because we are also from arts and science only. But we are able to conduct some programs because a startup or entrepreneurship is a general management related concept. A little advantage the science people or engineering people will have, they can have a mission or an invention or a prototype that can be easily converted into a new product. So for the non-technical people, either they can be from the commerce or they can be from the MBA or BBA can also be do. And the innovations and the creativity is not limited to any of the department. Even from our BBA and BCom, also the students are suggesting some applications, some ideas. For that, we will be collaborating with either the BC or MCA people, and sometimes we will have a collaboration with other institutions, other technical institutions, engineering colleges, so that we can do mutually. So, Seema ma'am, if you personally text us what type of training program is required for you, we can arrange. And so whatever possible from our college side as a faculty members from various departments, we can arrange for the college. If it is required from outside also, we can arrange. So please, personally, you can tell what type of topics you are looking for, and the audience, you surely will arrange them. And in terms of our IIC, as per the calendar, if you feel any challenge in arranging any guest or any resource, finding out the resource person, we are here to support you. You just text the title and the type of audience we have, and we can take care of the training program. Thank you. Okay, so thank you all. Thank you, Manjunath sir, for your time. So even you are in some other work you are ready to dedicate for us. I am very happy to have in the IIC.
I'd say thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Yes, whenever there is something related to law or IPR, we'll come to you. Okay, so please support.
Sure, sir. Sure.
And heartily, I thank all our mentees and their friends from the various institutions, BVS, Akamahadevi Women's College, and Mount Carmel College, Sheshatri Institute of Management Studies, St. Paul College, Vivekananda Institute of Technology. We thank all the presidents, vice presidents, the conveners, faculty coordinators, student coordinators, and all the management from the various institutions. They are supporting us. We all work together, and we will get a highest star in terms of IIC ranking. And we all work together to create the entrepreneurs from all our collaborative institutions. So thank you all. If anything, you can contact us at any time. We will get support.